Possibly explain a bit about archetypes and what we do with these wounded sort of children.
Yeah, so we have four survival archetypes, which are really the archetypes that come out when we're in that stress response, when we're in that sympathetic fight or flight state, when we're in survival mode. That's why they're called survival archetypes. Is they're the archetypes that are instilled into you to help you survive. But like we said earlier, not necessarily thrive. So we all have a child, we all have a victim, we all have a saboteur, and we all have a prostitute, right? The child is the part of us that still looks for some external authority figure to take care of it. It's still looking for a parent figure. It's still outsourcing responsibility, right? The child hasn't yet empowered itself to take full ownership of its life. It's still kind of outsourcing responsibility to others. The victim is the part of us that feels disempowered, that feels victimized, feels almost like life is happening to us rather than for us. The victim also likes to point fingers and blame. The victim likes to go into like self-pity. The saboteur is really self-sabotage, right? The ways in which we sabotage our own empowerment, we sabotage our health, we really sabotage our potential and our empowerment for survival purposes, right? And the prostitute would be where we compromise ourselves, where we negotiate ourselves, where we compromise our values. Maybe we say yes to things that we should say no to based on our values, but we do it for security purposes. Maybe we take a job at a company that pays really well, but it goes against our values. Like it would be like me valuing organic food, but Monsanto paying me $5 million a year and me saying yes to that. That would be my prostitute, right? So whenever we're under stress, which the last few years, very stressful for a lot of people, most people, this is where you see the survival archetypes really expressing themselves, right? If you look collectively, even if we use the pandemic as kind of like a framework for these archetypes, the first thing that happens is we're told there's a virus that is killing everybody, and we need to stay home, wear a mask, stay away from loved ones, and kind of like shut down. Like there's the victim archetype. Everyone feels victimized. Like there's this perpetrator coming after them. They're the victim, and they need to stay home and protect themselves. Now there's kind of like a sitting and waiting for authority to tell and to come and tell you what to do. There's the child archetype that's waiting for mom and dad to give them instructions as to what choice to make. Okay, so we have the victim, we have the child, and then we start to see, you could say, sabotaging certain freedoms, right? We sabotage our own freedom and empowerment for survival and security, right? There's the saboteur. And then throughout this whole process, you see a lot of compromising of values. You see a lot of compromising of values for financial gain, for security purposes. There's, you could say, is the prostitute, even like taking like free handouts, a lot of the prostitutes. So you could see the four survival archetypes, and these are not necessarily bad things. They're there for a reason. They're there to ensure your survival when it's under threat. So that is a good thing. For example, if you're in an abusive relationship, to say I'm not a victim would be silly. To deny that you're a victim would be silly. You should say, yeah, I'm a victim and I need to do something about it. I need to get out of this relationship. I need to set stronger boundaries. So they're not all bad. It's just you want to be in relationship with these archetypes in a very empowered way, right? And unfortunately, a lot of times we get our emotional needs met through the disempowered expression of these archetypes. For example, like I shared with you earlier, not feeling a strong emotional connection with my father when I was younger, I said that my father was a physician. He was an orthopedic physician. And as a child, anytime I was in pain or injured in any way, my mom would take me to my dad's office and I would get the best treatment from him his partners, his nurses, etc. So there was a part of my child's mind that says, when I'm in pain, I get more love from dad, or I get more connection with dad. So there's a part of my child archetype and victim archetype that says, when I'm the victim, like I'm in pain, I'm injured, or I'm compromised in some way, I get my emotional needs met from my father, right? So that will result in self-sabotage. I might sabotage my health just to get those needs met. So you could see how these four archetypes are really at the root of our relationship with our health, our relationship with our emotions and how we try and get our needs met, and our relationship with our own power, where we're willing to sabotage our empowerment just for survival purposes. And that's really what we're being called to shift right now is, really taking full self-responsibility, taking responsibility for our health, taking responsibility for our own happiness, taking responsibility for our own empowerment, for our own emotions, and not outsourcing that anymore. And I think the outsourcing of those things is where we get ourselves into trouble, which the last couple of years you could say is giving us some insight into. So I think that's really the most important point, is radical self-responsibility.